Now, on PowerShell, the first thing that you must do is to connect to your Azure account. But before you connect, you have to install. So that's the first thing that you must do before you start doing that. So you install module and then the name AZ and then allow Clover and then the scope current user. Okay, so you actually need to do that before you can do anything else. So we can just say connect AZ account. Then that will open a browser, and then just make sure that you sign in there. I'm just going to go ahead and sign in. And it says authentication complete. You can return to the application. Feel free to close this browser tab. So we can also close it if you want to. And then you can actually see that I'm actually signed in now. Okay. Now, so the first thing is we need to define the credentials, and then we're gonna store them in a variable. So then it's gonna prompt me to enter the username. So I'm gonna enter my name as the username, or we can say admin or whatever, admin user or whatever username you want. So I'm gonna enter my name, and then I need to provide the password. So the password, I'm gonna just say password 123 and exclamation. All right, so now I've stored the credentials that I'm going to use later into the variable cred, and then now we need to create or define the public IP address settings that we're going to use for our server. So we can have public. Again, we're going to create a new variable called public IP, which is new AZ, and then the name, we can just call it my public IP, my public IP, my public IP, and then we need to specify the location. The location will be South Africa North. We can also decide how do we want to allocate it. Is it going to be dynamic or static? So we can actually allow allocation. All right, and then the next thing now is to define the network security group for rule for RDP. All right, so we can create a new variable as well, and I'm just going to call it network security group NSG rule for RDP, which is going to be new AZ network security rule config. So this is one long word, so just make sure that the spelling is correct. So that's new AZ network security rule config, and then the name will be RDP, so that's for remote desktop, so that we can connect to our server there, RDP. And then the protocol that you want to use, protocol is going to be a TCP, and then the direction will be inbound. Source address prefix will be all. So meaning like you can we saying any computer, any IP address can connect to this server. Of course, I mean in a production environment, you want to specify the IP address that will be connecting to that server, not everything, not any other IP address. So we're just saying all the IP address, and then also the destination prefix. We can do the same destination port range. Sorry, destination address, actually destination address, and then the destination port range. So we also need to open a port. Okay, so we can go ahead and store that. All right, so now we want to create a network security group and add the RDP rule that we just created. We'll just add NSG, network security group, create a new variable there, and then new AZ network security group, and then we need to provide a name. So the name will be my NSG. Okay, and then we also need to apply the security rules. Security rules. So because we've put the security rules on the NSG rule RGP, so we just need to call it NSG. All right, and then do that. Let me just see. Let me just check what parameters is missing. Source address prefix. Okay, so we're actually missing the port range, the source port range. My bad. You see that one. So I'm gonna go maybe before destination, and then I'm gonna specify the source port range. A source port range security group, and then C. We should be fine now. Yeah, now we good. All right, so now the next thing is to define a virtual network and subnet. All right, so we will say vnet. Let's just call it virtual network vnet. So I'm going to create a new variable virtual network, which is new AZ virtual network. Okay, there must be a hyphen sort of AZ virtual network, and then you must always check the spelling as well. Check it multiple times just to make sure that you're typing the correct thing. All right, so we'll need to specify the resource group name, which is a resource group name. So it's gonna be a RG new, and then we specify the location. Need to specify the the virtual network. So the name will be my VNet, my VNet, and then we need to specify the address prefix. So we'll specify the address prefix, which is now let's do the subnet quickly. So we can do subnet add AZ virtual network subnet config. Again, this is really a long word, so you have to check the spelling. Add virtual network subnet config, and then we need to specify the name, which is my subnet, and then the address prefix, which is gonna be 10.0.0.0/24 network, and then we need to also specify the virtual network virtual network, which is gonna be stored, which we can get it from the variable vnet. All right, and then we need to do a network interface configuration, and then we can just create a variable called nic for network interface and then it's going to be new az network interface and then the name is going to be my nic, and then we need to also specify the resource group name, which is new resource group name, and then what else we need to specify, and then we need to specify okay, the location South Africa North. Okay, South Africa North, come on, Africa .id, and then we also the public IP address, and then public IP address ID ID. So it's coming from the public IP .id, and then the network security group ID, network security group ID, network security group ID. So it is gonna be coming from nsg.id. So that was the nic. All right, and cannot validate parameter subnet ID. So this error here, if we look, it says meaning the subnet ID is not properly retrieved. Just start with the virtual network and then see. So the virtual network, let's just see. So we've got the location, the group name, which is fine, the location South Africa North, and then the name, my vnet, which is fine, and then the address prefix. Okay, so here's a problem. So we didn't do this, so we're supposed to specify the subnet from the subnet config. Subnet config. Come on. So let's just do like this. So we can accept the default. Okay, so that is done, and then now I think the security groups is fine, and then let's do this. Let's do the subnet config is new az network, new AZ network. AZ network is actually virtual network subnet config config. Okay, and then now what we need to do is to add the subnet configuration to the virtual network. So we're gonna say add AZ virtual network virtual network subnet. All right, so this is good, and then so we managed to add that, and then we need to apply the network changes. So we can just say a vnet and then set AZ virtual network. Okay, all right, now let's retrieve the IDs and see if we can get it. So we can just say subnet get AZ virtual network net. Get a parameter cannot be found that matches parameter name. I think what we can do, we can actually try and retrieve them directly. So we can just get that and we can retrieve them directly by saying is vnet dot subnets where object my subnet. Will this work? All right, seems to work. Okay, now we need to actually define our network interface and then we create a virtual machine. So we're just gonna, I need to bring Nick. Okay, Nick. So let's just do it this way. Okay, so the location is, up until location is South Africa North, and then the subject ID. Okay, hopefully this doesn't create any problems. Okay, now cannot subnet ID. Still getting the same error. All right, anyway, let's see if we can create a new virtual machine. So we can just say new AZ VM, and then we need to provide the resource, the resource group name, resource group name. All right, and then the name is gonna be suppose this is for DHCP server, so we can just say DHCP server or Active Directory or whatever server it can be, and then the location gonna be South Africa North. South Africa North. All right, and then we the image. So the image is gonna be Win 219 Windows Server 2019 data center. Center. And then the size. So the size we can just do standard. Again, you can always check the sizes. I think is DS1, V2. And then the public IP address name is gonna be address name. It's gonna be a public IP name. Right, and then we've got a problem with the nick, but let's define it. Network interface IDs. So we can just say nick dot ID. So we've got a problem. I need to figure out what's causing that issue. So let's see if we can deploy this machine. Okay, so yeah, so I'm gonna remove this part. We can always put it later on the machine. Now it's gonna go ahead and deploy our virtual machine. Sorry guys, we took a little bit longer today, but I need to finish this part. All right, so we get a success, and now let's go and confirm. So I'm gonna go ahead and refresh here. So we should have the virtual machine. There we go, DHCP server. You can actually see that it's running as well. Okay, so let's get to it. And there is a public IP. So we can actually try and connect to it by, so on Windows you can just go run, and you can just hit run, and then you just type the ms tsc. So this is to open the remote desktop, and then on the remote desktop I'm just gonna go ahead and put my paste my public address, and then try and connect, and then it's gonna prompt for a username. The username is my name, and then the password, I think it was password 123 if I'm not mistaken. No, that was the first one. Administrator 123 with an exclamation. I don't think it's this one. I think it was password 123 with like that, 123, password 123. Yes, and we are connecting to our server and we are in. So meaning everything was done successfully. And I'm in my server, and then I can go ahead and do anything that I actually want to do in my Windows server. Okay,